So, motivation. We hear so much about AI, so much about LLMs. I think this is true generally of everyone. My litmus test for whether something is like hot and like current and people are really paying attention to it is whether my mom asks me about it on the phone, right? And since we've gotten to that point, like this is big. AI is everywhere, and we hear two very different views on this, right? The kind of the I guess the wizard and like magician kind of view is it's our savior. It'll revolutionize the world. And then there's the more dour one, which is it's coming for our jobs, our way of life. It's going to change everything in a horrible way. And Heidi actually kind of hinted at the question that hangs over all of us in this moment is what is the impact on all this for our work? How revolutionary is it? And is that a good revolution or a bad revolution? And I think a lot's still to be determined there. But the truth is that for researchers, probably both of these views are roughly true. It accelerates research tremendously. Tasks that took days now take minutes. I spent so much time as a methods person just cleaning like data and munging data and like recoding variables, and it was the one part of the job that I liked the least, and that would take a lot of time, and maybe I could have been more efficient, but I know my way around R pretty well and had a lot of experience, and it's just like really really quick now. But you can't trust outputs as well, or maybe you can't. We'll talk about this a bit. One thing I want to keep people to keep in their mind here is that if you take a principal agent view of research delegation, most of us actually don't work in a way in which we touch every single thing that we do on a project. We have co-authors, or we have RAs, or we get other people involved at some point in the process. They could be undergrad RAs, they could be master students, they could be PhD students, whatever. But we like normally are outsourcing or delegating some of our work to people. And maybe other people's experiences are different, but my experience is that in that act of delegation, we often find some error. So human beings are making mistakes too. And there's this weird conversation that we have about AI and trusting outputs, I think, where the expectation isn't like, are they better than humans? It's like, are they error-free? But we live in a world in which delegation often occurs and isn't error-free. So I think that mentally we need to change the reference category. But it is true that we can't trust outputs blindly, and they need work and inspection. Now, these tools are also hugely democratizing. They can sorry, just saw the last comment. It's coming after our jobs. Yes, well, we'll talk about that too. So these tools are really, really great in making methods more accessible to more researchers, in reducing the barrier to entry that maybe coding used to be, or that figuring out how to apply some statistical model used to be. But you have to learn prompt engineering, tool integration, and then there's this whole hanging uncertainty, the shadow over all of us over like, how do we report this stuff? What are other people thinking about it? What's acceptable in the field? And like, we don't have data really on that, I think, across fields, and everything's changing quickly, so it's hard to know. There's even a sense I've had with co-authors recently that stuff's democratizing. I work with about half the co-authors I work with are non-native English speakers, and LLMs have been a real boon to their ability to take their great ideas and present them in a way where reviewers aren't going to like diminish their work because of potential, grammar issues or like dropped articles or whatever. So because of minor things that are orthogonal to the quality of the work. So this is great, but some of them are worried that because they're using ChatGPT to help them with writing, that in some future point, we're actually going to have a tool that can classify whether or not people have used ChatGPT to help them with writing. And then people are going to run this on like large corpus of articles, and people are going to be found out for using it for editing. I'm not talking about like writing articles whole cloth, but just even for editing. And it's not clear how you disclose that now. And so I think there's all this like fear and bundle of like uncertainty around it. But also on the plus side, these models can enable new designs, conversational experiments that we never could have done before. Like the work that I'll show you tomorrow, in order to do a human version of that, it would have cost like $150,000, $200,000 to have people go door to door and have conversations with people. And we can field that at scale with an online survey sample for like $6,000. So, and all because of this new treatment. And it can do massive scale coding, right? So it can take a lot of documents and code them extremely quickly in ways that even maybe older algorithms for doing automatic text analysis would have struggled. But it's also created new threats that we have to worry about. For those of you who do public opinion research, you may have read Sean Westwood's recent PNAS article. Sean was a former colleague at Dartmouth, and his article basically shows that a lot of new public opinion data could be AI generated, so we don't know the extent to which we can trust that. And then there are data integrity issues, even with observational data, because in many cases we don't know if people are using AI to generate that. So there's a whole question about like the quality of the inputs we're getting for the research we're doing. All right, so trade-off. This workshop stance, so my stance as of 3:18 in the morning, January 15th, is that we should embrace AI as a powerful tool while building robust validation and transparency practices. We'll come back to this again in more detail and in part because I'm very curious what you all think, but I deeply believe that human beings should always check what the AI are doing, and also that we should be as transparent as possible about our use of these tools. I think that is best for science as a whole, and I'll advance an argument for that, hopefully a persuasive one later. But I also think that that's best for our own careers. I think that I think these tools are being widely used and used by almost everyone. And people who tell me they're not using AI, I'm kind of like, really? But I think they're really widely used, and I think you get a benefit of just being honest about using it. It's a signal of something, and that thing I think is positive. Okay, so we're not going to go over, related to this though, in the state of the field and the fact that it's constantly changing, what this workshop is and isn't, and what it can't be. It can't be a best practices manual because we just don't know them yet. The tech's evolving too rapidly. Someone was pointing out they were worried about things being outdated in a matter of months, and I would say that that's not only likely, but almost completely certain. This workshop is also not frozen in a ChatGPT-3 kind of era. Many academic discussions about this are. And I think people, adopted tools and then they didn't do what they wanted, and then they kind of like let them go, and now they're skeptics. And that's a fair position. We're all like busy. We all can engage only in so much stuff. I watch a lot less basketball than I used to, but this is something that like the frontiers just changed, and I think not everyone's aware of that. Models are much better now. I can't say that there aren't going to be prescriptive rules. I'm going to have suggestions, but rarely am I ever going to say always do X or never do Y, except for the fact that I think you should always have human beings check things and always be transparent about use. But aside from those two principles, a lot of this is going to be highly contextualized, and there's not really a great one-size-fits-all approach here, regardless of what the snake oil sales people on X or LinkedIn might tell you about this. I don't think. So instead, the focus on this workshop is on expanding possibilities, having you have a better sense of what you can actually do out there in the world. So what can be done, how much more? Well, we don't really know yet. But I want us to explore a full range of current capabilities across these tools that I already mentioned, and kind of discover stuff together. Share what works and share what doesn't. We have a couple active learning exercises where I'm curious in your own reactions to AI generated output, and we can think through across different use cases what's working and what isn't. So this is much less here's the right way and more let's discover what is possible. This is something I feel weird about whenever I teach this class. I normally teach principles of experimental design or like intro stats or automatic text analysis, and I can come to people and I'm like, here are 20 things you should definitely do. But because of the way that this technology is changing, I think that the mindset for teaching a course like this has to be much more like, here are a bunch of cool things we can do, here are the drawbacks to them, here's some cases where maybe we should use them, less prescription and more exposure. Okay, so by day 3, what I want everyone to be able to do, or to have a sense of how you can do, is to go and replicate and extend an entire paper in 1 hour. So they're in about 1 hour. Could do it in less, actually, depending on the paper. But the reason why I'm focusing so much on agents right now is because there was this post that came out on LinkedIn, on X, I think on like every social media, by Andy Hall, who's a professor at Stanford's Business School. And Andy's great, does a lot of really creative, cool stuff in American politics. And he posted that over the weekend he had Claude Code go through and fully replicate and extend an old paper of his. Okay, and he did this programmatically. He had a really small prompt for this, and the whole thing took about an hour, right? So he went out, it agent, and we should think when we talk about cloud code, we should focus less on the brand name and more on what the thing is. So an agent went and downloaded the old paper's repo, replicated past results, translated its data code into Python, crawled the web to get official, like updated official data, it created some new analyses, new tables and figures, did a lit review, wrote a paper, pushed the whole thing to a GitHub repo. And Hall later showed he had someone independently check the accuracy of it, including for references and the like in the data. And there were some minor mistakes that appeared in the data, but of the kind that you can imagine, honestly, any of us, even no matter how well trained, might have. I'm sure that I've had data errors in some prior papers. I'm not saying that we should accommodate and we should be okay with errors being made by AI agents, but I think that it's important to keep the reference category kind of reasonable. Anyway, so he posted this, and this is the kind of stuff that I've been doing with Warp since July, and the immediate reaction from the political science community was nothing less than just like, oh my God, what, it was I don't know. I think for some people almost a near religious moment at the idea of what actually could be done. And Andy talked about a world in which people could basically be writing multiple papers a day. And I'm not sure this qualifies as writing, and I don't think people would probably want to do that. Yeah, thank you for that example, John. So John's example of students using it is important, but I think it's important to understand that, like, our colleagues now are aware, certainly my colleagues in political science, after what Andy posted, are aware of the possibilities and what could be done. And I was actually surprised that more people didn't know about this. And I saw an evolving social media discourse about where all these people were like going off, messing with agents, like, I don't know, dozens of people, not hundreds or thousands, but leading figures within the field were going out and were trying to see what they could do with agents, and people were shocked and kind of blown away. So I want us to be able to get to a point where we understand how this can be done. I'm not saying that people should be doing this. It's not a prescription, but I think it's important to understand how quickly things can be done with agents, and this is why I've refactored a bunch of the course. Essential terminal concepts, just to give you a sense, because some things you're going to want to type on your own and not actually rely on AI for. So you want to type out like your current directory, where you are, PWD. So think of this as like, which folder are you looking at? I'm going to show all this in application shortly. List contents, so see what's actually inside your folder, and you can do this by typing the ls command. You will often want to change your directory, move to a different folder. You can do that with cd, but I want to go ahead and open up Warp and show you how I would go through some of these things. All right, so here's what Warp looks like. Warp is my favorite application of all time now. I really love this. So what I have here is the window opened up full screen with a basic Solarize theme. This is something really off the shelf. I want to walk you through this a little bit. I need to move something over in my Zoom window. Okay, and there we go. All right. So down here on the bottom, we have the command line interface. And you can issue typical Linux-based commands to move things around. So right now, I'm in the sandbox directory, but I might want to move up one directory. So to go to the Dropbox Teaching Statistical Horizons directory, and I could just do that by change directory and then .. That'll take me up one. Then I could run an ls command, and it's just going to show me everything that's actually in here, right? And a lot of these, anything that you see as a MD file is a markdown file that's generated by an agent to record work being done. Okay, so I used to do a lot of my slides in Google Slides. I found this to for a long time, I was like Beamer, like hardcore Beamer person, so LaTeX for slides. And then I got bored, so then I went over to Google Slides. And then I thought, as part of this class, I should start thinking about actually how to do things via HTML slides, because of some animations I want to embed. So I changed my slide base over from Google Slides to Quattro, which would then generate an HTML file. I did that all through AI agents. So you see a lot of different like MD files, and that's the agent like saving kind of updates and like telling itself what it's doing. Okay, and then we could go ahead and we could print the working directory in case we're confused. We see the working directory right here with the tilde /Dropbox /teaching /statistical horizons. But if we issue the command pwd, we see it printed out, and we might want to go ahead, and although this is circuitous, go back to the sandbox directory. All right, we're here. What's in the sandbox directory? There's something called article PNG, so some image about an article, a docx file for a survey, and then a CSV file that contains some process data. So this is how you can navigate your computer through a command line interface. All right, I think that's all I want to show for Warp for the moment. One last thing actually. So down here, because I might forget this later, Warp allows you to choose what kind of agent you're actually working with. So like picking an ice cream flavor. It defaults to auto. So every time that you do a command with Warp, it burns through a credit actually, and they have this like credit pricing tiered scheme. You can either purchase credits directly from the company that runs Warp, or you can provide API keys to it so that it will execute everything through an API key for like the agent of your choice. I haven't been able to figure out that their costing isn't like super transparent, and I haven't really been able to figure out what is the most cost efficient means of doing this, although I've been using Warp daily since July, maybe June. And they keep changing the pricing model, so that doesn't help it. But I would say that I use Warp all the time, like every day for things. And a lot of it's just like for not things involving research, but just like getting things done on the computer, creating standalone applications to help me increase productivity, or, creating weird mashups of different things to amuse my daughter with stories about like K-pop figures or something like that, right? So I'm just using Warp for all this kind of stuff. And I would say that my monthly burn is probably about $150 a month, but that's doing like everything. And that figure is important to keep in mind because at Dartmouth we don't really have research assistants in the way that a lot of other places do. And at Dartmouth we don't have PhD students. So I've been using Warp basically as like my grad research assistant for like everything, and for that it's still only like $150 a month, and I consider that to be a really nice price point. Heidi mentioned or asked about work-life balance, and I would say that I could probably get 80 hours of work done maybe in 8 or 10 now. So I'm buying myself a lot of time for the price of what's the joke, like 5 avocado toasts. Anyway, so with Warp, you select a different model, and they provide some information that helps you figure out how much these models are going to cost you and how to think about the relative intelligence and speed of the models. Some models can be smart but slow. Some models can be both smart and fast, etc., and they differ in costs. So it goes to an auto one. So we'll figure out basically what model, based on what Warp knows about what you're trying to do, and based on the internal data the company has about how people are using it, it'll default to doing a model that is the quickest for whatever job it is that you want to get done. It doesn't always select the right one. Sometimes the models just don't work. Like they'll return an error, and the error doesn't really make any sense, and then you ask the model to diagnose the error, and it doesn't really know, so it gets stuck. And this is like the only time that I normally go through and I actually like change what the model is.